Perfect, I said, my voice calm and steady, the kind of calm that only comes from years of silent endurance. Sabrina froze, her red-lacquered smile faltering mid-sentence. She stood in my kitchen, the one I had designed, scrubbed, and cooked in for 3 decades, wearing a crimson silk dress too expensive for her modest part-time job. Her perfume filled the air, sweet and artificial, like everything about her. She had just announced, in that breezy, entitled tone, that her entire extended family, 25 people, would be coming to my home for Christmas. Our home, she would have said, if I hadn't spoken first. Perfect, I repeated, watching the confusion flicker in her eyes. It will be the perfect Christmas for all of you because I won't be here. I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my revenge story from. I want to know how far it's reached. The silence that followed was exquisite. Even the kitchen clock seemed to stop ticking. Her mouth fell open. I'm sorry, what? I smiled faintly. The kind of smile that had gotten me through years of condescension and fake politeness. You heard me clearly, Sabrina. I'm going on vacation. You, Daniel, and your guests can cook, clean, and celebrate however you wish. I am not your maid. She blinked rapidly, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. Then the color drained from her cheeks, replaced by a blotchy flush of indignation. You can't be serious, she stammered. My family already bought their plane tickets. They're expecting the Whitmore Christmas. You've always hosted. Indeed, I said softly, and I've done so beautifully for years. But this time you're the host, I insist. The ceramic mug in her manicured hand rattled against its saucer. Her smile, once so carefully curated for social media, cracked at the edges. You're joking, right? You can't just leave. Of course I can, I said, savoring each word. It's my house. Those 4 simple words landed like a thunderclap. She straightened, shoulders squared, chin raised, that brittle confidence flickering back. Our house, she shot back quickly. Daniel and I live here too. Yes, I replied. You live here temporarily. You don't own it. Her jaw clenched. Daniel won't allow this. Ah, yes, my son. The boy who used to bring me wildflowers from the garden and call me his best friend. Now a man who avoided eye contact when his wife ordered me around. I suppose we'll find out soon enough, I said simply, turning back to rinse my teacup. Her voice rose, sharp and shrill. Eleanor, this is insane. It's Christmas. You can't just abandon your family like this. Abandon. I nearly laughed. 5 years of unpaid labor, 5 years of catering, decorating, and swallowing insults. And she called my absence abandonment. Consider it an educational opportunity, I said, drying my hands with a linen towel. You'll learn what it takes to host 25 people without free help. Sabrina's composure cracked fully now. She was pacing across my kitchen tiles, those expensive heels clacking like a metronome of panic. Do you even hear yourself? You can't just go. Where would you even go? That, I said with deliberate serenity, is my business. Before she could respond, the front door opened. The sound of Daniel's keys, the heavy thud of his shoes, an echo of the evenings I used to cherish when my son came home from school, calling, Mom, with that eager little boy voice. Now, it was the weary sigh of a man who spent his days appeasing a woman who thought of herself as royalty. Sabrina ran to him instantly. Daniel, thank God you're home. Your mother's lost her mind. I could hear the performance already. Her tone trembled, her voice quivered just enough to sound fragile. She'd perfected the art of being the poor, misunderstood victim. I stayed where I was, wiping down the spotless counter. A moment later, Daniel appeared in the doorway, tall, tired, and already wearing that expression that begged, Please, Mom, don't make this difficult. Mom, he began, setting his briefcase down. Sabrina tells me you're thinking of leaving for Christmas? I'm not thinking, I replied. I'm leaving. He frowned, the crease between his brows deepening. Why now? It's just a few days. You love Christmas. I used to, I said, before it became a job. Sabrina stepped in, her tone dripping with false patience. See what I mean, Daniel? She's not being reasonable. She's upset because I invited my family. I thought it would be nice togetherness, you know? Without asking me, I said evenly. Sabrina turned, eyes wide in mock surprise. Oh, come on, Eleanor. We're family. You didn't mind hosting last year or the year before. Ah, yes, I said, leaning slightly against the counter. Last year, when I cooked for 20 people while you coordinated decorations from the sofa. And the year before, when I scrubbed your spilled wine out of my antique rug while you posed for photographs by the tree. Daniel winces. Mum? No, Daniel, I said, my tone firmer now, the years of exhaustion sharpening every syllable. You two have mistaken my kindness for obligation. That ends today, he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck like a scolded teenager. Mom, can't we just have one peaceful holiday? Please? It's only 1 week. 1 week, I echoed. That's all it takes to remind me how invisible I've become. The kitchen fell quiet again. Sabrina stared at me as though she'd seen a ghost, perhaps realizing, finally, that her power was slipping. Then came the change, the shift in her expression. I'd seen it before the instant she decided to play the martyr. Her lips trembled just slightly, her voice softened. Eleanor, please don't do this. I've always seen you as a second mother. We're a family. I need you. The manipulation was almost artful, almost. I tilted my head. You need me to cook and clean. That's not family, dear. That's employment. Sabrina's voice cracked. You're being cruel. No, I said quietly. I'm being fair. Daniel's patience finally thinned. Mom, this isn't like you. You've always been the strong one, the one who keeps us together. Maybe you're just tired. Maybe it's hormonal. That word hormonal landed like a slap. For a brief second, I saw red. Then I laughed, softly, dangerously. Daniel, my dear, the only thing hormonal here is my rising blood pressure from 5 years of disrespect. He had the grace to look ashamed, but only slightly. I took a step forward, lowering my voice. I'm leaving tomorrow. My ticket's booked. My bags are nearly packed. You can host your Christmas without me. Sabrina gasped. Tomorrow? You can't. I can, I said. And I will. Her panic twisted into fury. You'll ruin everything. My family will think I'm incompetent. Then perhaps you shouldn't have built your image on lies, I interrupted. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Daniel stood frozen between us, the helpless referee he'd become long ago. I turned, lifted my teacup again, and looked out the window toward the snow falling softly on the pines. Merry Christmas, Sabrina, I said gently. You finally get to experience the holiday you've always wanted without me in it. And as the silence deepened, I felt it for the first time in years. Peace, cold, bright, and absolute. I was no longer the help. I was the woman who walked away. The next morning dawned pale and brittle, the kind of winter light that makes every reflection sharper. I stood in my bedroom, folding clothes into a suitcase I hadn't used since Daniel's wedding. Back then, I'd packed it with silk dresses and high hopes, not with the quiet determination of a woman reclaiming her freedom. The house was silent. Sabrina hadn't dared to face me again after our exchange the night before. She'd locked herself in the guest room, probably calling her friends to complain about her impossible mother-in-law. I imagined her pacing in circles, manicured nails tapping the phone screen, trying to summon sympathy from her circle of acquaintances who adored her curated chaos. When the clock struck 8, I zipped up the last bag. I paused, looking around the room that had once been my sanctuary. The floral curtains, the family photos on the dresser, the quilt I had stitched by hand in the first year of my marriage, it all carried ghosts of quieter times. Times when love and respect had not yet eroded beneath entitlement. Downstairs, I could hear Daniel's voice, low and tense. Sabrina, just apologize to her. It's not worth this fight. Apologize? She snapped. She's abandoning us days before Christmas. She's making me look like a fool in front of my entire family. Do you think your uncle-in-law from Arizona will still take my calls after this circus? I almost laughed. Her uncle-in-law. Not his uncle, not our family, hers. Always hers. I carried the suitcase down the stairs, one step at a time, my heartbeat steady. Daniel looked up, startled. Mom, you're really leaving? Yes, I said simply. Today. Sabrina appeared behind him, her red robe cinched tightly at the waist, her hair in perfect waves despite the early hour. She looked like a porcelain doll if porcelain dolls could seethe. This is cruelty, she hissed. What will my family think when they arrive and find no food, no decorations, no host? They'll think, I said calmly, that the woman who invited 25 people to someone else's house without permission made a very poor choice. Daniel rubbed his forehead, torn between guilt and habit. Mom, at least stay until tomorrow. You can leave after Christmas Eve dinner, please. Daniel, I said softly, you're 32 years old. If you can lead a business, you can host a dinner. You and your wife will manage. Before they could argue further, I placed a sealed envelope on the kitchen counter. This is for you, I said to Daniel. He frowned. What is it? Something to read later, I replied, echoing the same words I'd used once before, long ago, in another kind of battle. Sabrina eyed it suspiciously. More ultimatums? No, I said, meeting her gaze. Just clarity. I slipped on my coat, my movements deliberate, measured. The front door opened to a gust of cold air that smelled like pine and ocean salt. Hollow Bay had always been beautiful this time of year, the cliffs sharp against the winter sea, the gulls circling above like fragments of memory. I turned back one last time. Daniel stood by the counter, holding the envelope as if it might burn him. Sabrina's arms were crossed, but her confidence had cracks, now hairline fractures running through her perfectly composed mask. Take care of the house, I said. It's older than you think. It has a way of revealing secrets. And with that, I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. The sound echoed like finality. The drive to the coast took less than an hour, but it felt like crossing a lifetime. My hotel sat on a bluff overlooking the Pacific, its white stucco walls gleaming under the winter Sunday. I had reserved a suite with a fireplace and a view of the waves. The receptionist, a kind young woman, smiled as she handed me my key. Holiday getaway? She asked cheerfully. Something like that, I said. A change of scenery. Once in the room, I opened the balcony doors. The sea air rushed in, cold and alive. For the first time in years, I inhaled without feeling the weight of expectation pressing down on my chest. I made myself tea, Earl Grey, steeped just right, and sat by the window, watching the surf crash against the cliffs. The calm was intoxicating. No footsteps overhead, no voices calling my name. Just silence, vast and clean. My phone buzzed. Daniel, of course. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. Then again, and again. Finally, I switched the phone to silent. I deserved peace, at least for a day. By evening, curiosity tugged at me. I turned the phone back on. The screen lit up with messages, a torrent of missed calls and texts. From Daniel. Mom, where are you? Please call me back. From Sabrina. This is cruel. You've ruined everything. Then, one message caught my eye from an unknown number. Mr. Alan Croswell, Sabrina's wealthy uncle. Mrs. Whitmore, I received your email and the documents attached. We need to talk. I'll be in Hollow Bay tomorrow morning. Please confirm your address. A slow smile spread across my face. The game had just begun. Because weeks before this morning, I had already seen the cracks in Sabrina's perfect little empire, and I had prepared accordingly. 3 months before that morning, I had been scrubbing Daniel's study, a room I was rarely allowed to enter anymore, when I stumbled upon a stack of unopened mail in the bottom drawer of his desk. Most of it was dull. Insurance statements, store catalogs, 1 or 2 birthday cards from old friends. But beneath the pile, I found something that made my stomach tighten, a printed email thread, clipped neatly together, marked with Sabrina's name. Curiosity isn't a sin, no matter what self-righteous people say. It's a survival instinct, especially for women like me, who learn that ignorance is the surest path to humiliation. I sat down at the desk and began to read. At first, I thought it was a conversation about their finances, something ordinary. But as I scrolled through line after line, the tone shifted. Sabrina had been corresponding with a credit counselor, discussing restructuring options for accounts Daniel didn't even know existed. There were notes about credit cards in his name, about late payments, and a shocking line about collateralizing the Hollow Bay property to stabilize outstanding balances. The Hollow Bay property. My home. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. The woman who had reduced me to a domestic shadow was now using my house, the home I built with my late husband, as leverage to cover her reckless spending. I read every email twice, then 3 times. By the end, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the sharp, electric awareness that something inside me had finally broken free. That night, I called my attorney, Robert Miller. Robert, I said, my voice low but steady. I need to discuss asset protection. Hypothetically, if someone were trying to use property in my name as collateral without consent, how would one stop that? He hesitated. Hypothetically? Yes, I said, for now. He didn't press further. Robert had known me for 20 years, long enough to recognize the undertone in my voice that meant I am not asking permission. Over the following weeks, I began to move quietly. I reviewed every joint account, every document Daniel had ever signed. I transferred my savings to a private trust. I changed passwords, revoked access, and documented every irregular transfer I could trace. And then, I discovered something even more damning. Tucked between Sabrina's boutique receipts and business correspondence, I found invoices from luxury stores across Los Angeles and Carmel by the Sea clothing, jewelry, spa retreats, and one $6,000 handbag, each one charged to credit cards opened under Daniel's name. But the true dagger came in the form of a series of messages she had sent to her sister, Clarice. Once Eleanor's gone, we'll finally have full control. Daniel's too soft to stand up to her. We'll remodel the house, maybe even sell it, if Alan helps us with the down payment on the new place. Sell the house. She had written it so casually, as if I were already gone, as if my life's work, my memories, were just an inconvenient piece of real estate to flip for profit. That night, I poured myself a glass of Merlot, sat by the fireplace, and allowed the anger to settle not in flames, but in ice. Because cold fury lasts longer. I spent the next morning drafting emails. Short, polite, calculated. Dear Mr. Crosswell, I'm Eleanor Whitmore, Daniel's mother. I hope you don't mind the intrusion, but I'd appreciate your advice on a delicate family matter. I recently discovered some troubling financial irregularities involving my daughter-in-law, and I thought it best to reach out before things become public. I've attached documentation for your review. I attached the evidence, not all of it, just enough to make any responsible man take notice. Bank statements, credit card records, a few of Sabrina's more damning messages. By evening, I received a reply. Mrs. Whitmore, thank you for your discretion. I appreciate your honesty. We'll be in Hollow Bay for the holidays. I would very much like to meet and discuss this before our family gathering. I smiled as I closed the laptop. Timing was everything. From that day forward, I began my quiet preparations, step by step, brick by brick, while Sabrina continued her charade. She still barked orders, still called me dear, in that syrupy voice that meant servant, but I no longer heard her. I was too busy building her downfall. Back in the present, as I sat by the hotel window overlooking the gray Pacific, I opened my email again. Mr. Crosswell had sent another message. Mrs. Whitmore, we'll be arriving in Hollow Bay tomorrow morning. I'd like to discuss this in person if you're available. Perfect timing, I typed back with deliberate grace. Dear Mr. Crosswell, thank you for your response. I'll be leaving for a short trip tomorrow morning, but Daniel and Sabrina will be delighted to host you and the rest of your family. Please feel free to arrive early, they'll be expecting you. I hit send, closed my laptop, and leaned back in my chair. Outside, the waves crashed against the cliffs below, wild and unstoppable, just like the reckoning I had set in motion. For 5 long years, Sabrina had treated me like invisible wallpaper. But tomorrow, every lie she had woven would unravel in front of her entire family, and I wouldn't even have to lift a finger. The following morning arrived, wrapped in quiet mist. I woke before sunrise, the pale gray light of the Pacific filtering through my curtains like a soft omen. The ocean outside was restless waves churning against the cliffs, mirroring the storm I had so carefully orchestrated back home. From my sweet balcony, I could see the faint outline of Hollow Bay's rooftops far across the ridge. Somewhere down there, Sabrina and Daniel were about to awaken to the chaos they had sown, and I was going to savor every second of it from the safety of distance. I brewed my tea and turned on my phone, which had been buzzing on silent through the night. The notifications were endless: missed calls, texts, voicemails, even a few emails, the kind of digital panic that comes when people finally realize the world no longer bends to their whims. The first message was from Daniel. Mom, please call me. We found your note. Sabrina's family arrives in 3 hours. There's no food, no decorations, nothing's ready. Please, I'm begging you, just tell us what to do. The second was from Sabrina. Eleanor, you can't seriously be doing this. My uncle and cousins are flying in from out of state. You can't humiliate me like this. We can fix this if you just come back. And then another. Where are the Christmas dishes? Where's the turkey? The tablecloths? Did you take them? I smiled. Oh, Sabrina. She was finally learning the difference between a home that runs on gratitude and one that runs on expectation. I set my cup down and opened my laptop. The inbox was already flashing with new mail, including one that made me pause. Subject: We've arrived. Urgent matter. From Alan Crosswell. Mrs. Whitmore, my family and I have just landed and decided to drive directly to Hollow Bay. We'll be at your residence by 8. I look forward to our conversation and to clearing up these financial misunderstandings with Sabrina in person. 8 o'clock. I checked the clock on the wall, 7:22 a.m. Perfect timing. I could almost see it unfolding like a film in my mind. Sabrina flying out of bed, hair tangled, shouting at Daniel to run to the store, to buy food, to find something, anything that could pass for hospitality. The panic, the disarray, the disbelieving looks of 25 relatives arriving at a home with no warmth, no preparation, and no matriarch to save them. That was the beauty of revenge done right, not loud, not violent, but patient, precise. I clicked on my voicemail. Daniel's voice came first, ragged and rushed. Mom, please pick up. Sabrina's family is at the airport. They moved their flight up. We don't have anything ready. I don't even know where you keep half the serving dishes. Please, just tell us what to do. Then Sabrina's voice followed, breaking through static and tears. Eleanor, I'm begging you. Please. I know I haven't always been nice. I know I've said things. But if you come back, I'll do anything you want. Just please don't let me be embarrassed like this. They'll never respect me again. Her words might have moved me once, but they were hollow now, just like the woman who spoke them. The final message was shorter, colder, from Alan himself. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm on my way. We'll discuss the matter you mentioned soon. I expect full honesty from all parties involved. I could almost hear the weight of authority in his tone, the kind of voice that could crush reputations with a single sentence. And so, while the Crosswells drove up the coast toward Hollow Bay, I ordered room service, smoked salmon, croissants, and a pot of fresh coffee. I ate slowly, savoring each bite. Every minute that passed tightened the noose around Sabrina's carefully fabricated image. At exactly 8:15 a.m., my phone rang again. I answered this time. Mom. Daniel's voice was trembling. They're here. The whole family, Uncle Alan, Aunt Lila, even Clarice. Everyone's standing in the living room asking where you are. Good morning, sweetheart, I said pleasantly. And what did you tell them? That you, he hesitated, that you had an emergency and left. But they're asking questions. Uncle Alan wants to talk to you. I see. Well, you can tell him I'm perfectly fine, and that I trust you both to handle everything. There was a pause, then the sound of someone taking the phone from Daniel's hand. A deep, measured voice came through. Mrs. Whitmore, this is Alan Crosswell. I understand you've left town, but I'd appreciate a few moments of your time. Of course, Mr. Crosswell. How are you finding Hollow Bay? He exhaled slowly. Confusing, to be honest. There's no sign of preparation here. No food, no decorations. Sabrina seems distraught. She claims there's been a misunderstanding, that you sabotaged her gathering. I see, I replied, my tone as cool as the sea breeze. Well, misunderstandings are common when someone's built their life on half-truths. Silence on the other end. Then, a sharp intake of breath. So the documents you sent me, the debt, the loans, the credit cards, they're real? Every one of them, I said. You may confirm with the bank if you wish. He didn't respond immediately. I could hear murmurs in the background. A woman's voice, probably Clarice's, raised in disbelief, and then Sabrina crying, her voice rising higher with every word. Alan came back on the line. Mrs. Whitmore, I owe you an apology. My family should have known better than to believe the stories Sabrina told about your household. You've been far more gracious than she deserved. I wasn't gracious, Mr. Crosswell, I said softly. Just patient, and patience always runs out. He sighed. She'll have to face this. We'll deal with her directly. I trust you will. There was a long pause, then his voice softened. If I may, Mrs. Whitmore, are you all right? You sound remarkably calm for a woman watching her world collapse. I smiled faintly. Oh, Mr. Crosswell, it's not my world collapsing. He chuckled quietly, the dry laugh of a man who had seen his share of family disasters. Fair enough. I'll let you know how the conversation goes. Please do, I said. I'd be delighted to hear the outcome. And with that, I ended the call. At noon, while the rest of Hollow Bay erupted into scandal and shouting, I sat on the hotel terrace overlooking the sea. The waves glittered under the winter sun, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to relax. Justice, I'd learned, didn't always arrive in courtrooms or confrontations. Sometimes, it arrived in silence, in the peace that followed a perfectly executed plan. Somewhere in that house, Sabrina was now facing her family's wrath, her lies laid bare, her charm evaporating under scrutiny. And I, Eleanor Whitmore, was finally free. By late afternoon, Hollow Bay was buzzing with whispers. The Crosswells weren't a family to hide their conflicts quietly. I could almost imagine the scene through the eyes of a neighbor peeking from their frosted window, cars lined along the curb, doors slamming, voices rising and falling like waves in a storm. My sources? Oh, they came willingly. News in small towns travels faster than the tide, and the Whitmores had always been a topic of fascination. By the time I finished my lunch at the hotel, I had already received 2 curious calls from old friends. Eleanor, dear, are you all right? Is it true that Daniel's in-laws are causing a scene at your house? Someone said Sabrina fainted in the driveway. Each question was laced with curiosity, disguised as concern. I smiled at the irony. For years, I had been invisible in my own social circles, overshadowed by Sabrina's theatrics. Now, suddenly, I was the mysterious figure at the center of a delicious scandal. I poured myself a glass of Chardonnay, sat by the window, and let the sound of the ocean accompany me as I read through the new flood of emails on my laptop. The first was from Alan Crosswell. Mrs. Whitmore, you were right. Everything you warned me about has come to light. Sabrina's debts are far more extensive than we thought. She has been borrowing from family members under false pretenses, even using your name to guarantee future inheritance. I'm deeply sorry for how she treated you. My sister Lila and I intend to settle the matter privately tonight, but rest assured, the financial assistance she sought from us is revoked indefinitely. I read it twice, slowly, savoring each word. Then came another message, this time from Clarice. Eleanor, I owe you an apology. I used to think you were too cold with Sabrina, but now I understand. I've reviewed her financial records, and she's been falsifying income statements for months. I plan to contact the banks to prevent further damage to Daniel's name. You've saved him more than you realize. I closed the laptop and exhaled, a long, steady breath that tasted like release. It wasn't revenge anymore. It was correction, the restoring of balance that had been thrown off for far too long. Later that evening, I decided to take a walk down to the bluff. The winter sun was setting, painting the water in gold and lavender. Seagulls cut across the horizon, and for the first time in years, I felt something like peace, not the forced, quiet kind that comes from biting one's tongue, but the true peace of a woman who no longer has to justify her existence. I stayed out until the air grew colder and my hands began to stiffen. When I returned to the hotel, the voicemail icon blinked on my phone again, one new message from Daniel. His voice was hoarse, exhausted. Mom, I don't know what to say. Uncle Alan confronted Sabrina in front of everyone. She broke down. They found out about the credit cards, the loans, even the fake income reports. Clarice showed them everything. Sabrina's family is furious. Some of them are leaving tonight. She's been crying for hours, and honestly, I don't even know who I'm married to anymore. I wish you were here, but I also understand why you left. I'm sorry for everything. I sat down on the bed, listening to his voice fade into silence. Sorry. The word echoed in the quiet room like a small, fragile truth finally set free. I played the message again, not because I doubted it, but because it sounded like the first honest thing my son had said to me in 5 years. At midnight, I received a text from an unknown number. It was short, desperate. Eleanor, please. I need to speak to you, Sabrina. I didn't answer immediately. I stared at the screen for a long time, debating. The old part of me, the part that always sought to fix, to forgive, twitched with reflex. But the woman I had become? She needed no validation. Still, curiosity won. I called. The line picked up after one ring. The sound on the other end was raw, shaky breathing. "Eleanor?" Her voice cracked. "Please, don't hang up. I just need to understand why you did this. You could have told me. You could have warned me before everything fell apart." "I tried," I said simply. "Every time you ordered me around, every time you dismissed me. But people only hear what they respect, Sabrina, and you never respected me." "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I interrupted. "You meant every word, every demand, every little humiliation. You believed I'd always stay silent. But silence isn't loyalty. It's patience. And patience runs out." On the other end, I heard her stifled sobs. "They all hate me now. My uncle, my sister, even Daniel won't look at me." "Then maybe," I said softly, "it's time you look at yourself." There was nothing more to say. I ended the call. The next morning, I met with Robert Miller at the hotel cafe. He arrived dressed sharply, briefcase in hand, his usual air of calm professionalism tinged with faint satisfaction. "Eleanor," he said, setting the folder on the table, "it's all ready. The trust documents are finalized. Your assets are secure. And per your instructions, the house deed has been legally protected. No one can sell or mortgage it without your signature." "Good," I said. "Let's make it official." He slid the papers across the table, and I signed them one by one, my pen gliding smoothly over the pages. With each stroke, I felt lighter, freer, like I was erasing years of servitude, replacing them with sovereignty. Robert smiled. "You've handled this better than most of my clients, Eleanor. Cold, clean justice." "It's not justice," I said, folding the signed pages neatly. "It's balance." Outside, the sun rose over the Pacific, turning the water into molten gold. Tomorrow, I would return home. But not as the invisible woman who once lived there. I would return as the rightful mistress of my house, the woman who reclaimed not just her home, but her dignity. When I drove back into Hollow Bay the next morning, the sky was a bruised gray, and the wind carried that sharp salt scent that always came before rain. I'd spent the night thinking of nothing but how I wanted to step into that house again on my own terms. Robert met me in the driveway at exactly 10 o'clock, just as arranged. The briefcase was in his hand, and that steady calm he wore like a tailored suit never faltered. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded. "It's time." We walked up the path together. Through the window, I could see shadows moving inside, the unmistakable posture of defeat. I opened the door without knocking. "Mom?" Daniel's voice sounded hollow. He looked smaller somehow, thinner around the eyes. Behind him, Sabrina sat on the couch, her face swollen from crying, her mascara smudged like bruises. The grand Christmas decorations she'd promised her relatives were nowhere to be seen, only half-burned candles, empty takeout boxes, and the sharp, sour smell of humiliation. I set my purse down gently. "Good morning." Sabrina's eyes widened when she saw Robert. "What's this? Why is there a lawyer here?" "For clarity," I replied. "We all need a little clarity this Christmas." Robert set the briefcase on the coffee table, snapping it open with clinical precision. "Good morning. I'm Samuel Reed, Mrs. Whitmore's attorney. I'm here to finalize some legal matters regarding this property and her estate." "Estate?" Daniel echoed. "Mom, what's going on?" "I'm making sure my house remains exactly that, my house." My voice was calm, steady. "Robert?" He pulled out 2 envelopes. "First, the trust agreement. This document protects the Hollow Bay property from any future sale or mortgage without Mrs. Whitmore's explicit written consent. It ensures no debts, present or future, can be tied to this property." Sabrina's face went pale. "You can't do that." "I just did," I said. "Second, the residency clause," Robert continued. "As of today, only individuals approved by Mrs. Whitmore may reside in or use this house. That means any extended visits or events must be pre-approved. These terms are legally binding." Daniel's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Sabrina shot to her feet. "You're punishing me. You've destroyed my reputation. My family hates me." I looked at her, at the woman who had worn my patience like armor for years. "You destroyed your reputation when you lied, Sabrina. I simply told the truth." Her tears came harder, but they didn't move me anymore. Not like they once did. Alan's deep voice came from behind the door. I hadn't realized he was still there. "Mrs. Whitmore, I believe we owe you our thanks." He stepped in, his sister Clarice behind him. Their faces were serious, but there was respect in their eyes. "You've handled this with more grace than I would have," Alan said quietly. "We've spoken with Sabrina. She'll be repaying what she owes." Privately. "That's between you all," I replied. "I'm done managing other people's messes." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, defeated. "Mom, I don't know how to fix this." "You start," I said gently, "by taking responsibility for the woman you married and the life you allowed her to build on lies." The silence that followed was thick with consequence. Outside, church bells began to ring the noon chime, clear and deliberate. I turned to Robert. "Is that everything?" He nodded. "All signatures complete. Then we're done." I looked one last time at the living room. The toppled Christmas tree, the empty wine glasses, the faded remains of someone else's dream. Then I straightened my coat and walked to the door. "Eleanor," Daniel called after me. "Will you come back for Christmas dinner?" I paused. "Perhaps next year, when there's something worth celebrating." And with that, I stepped out into the cold December air, the sound of the ocean echoing like applause behind me. As I drove away from Hollow Bay, the first drops of rain began to fall, soft and cleansing. I rolled down the window, letting the wind whip through my hair. Justice, I thought, isn't about revenge. It's about peace and the courage to claim it.